The huggingest people I know, I tell you, like those hugs. How many were here Tuesday night for James Van Praagh? We had quite a few, yeah. It was in a wonderful event. We had about 1,000 people here. James Van Praagh is a world-renowned medium. Kind of a short guy, did you notice? He's not very big. I don't know if you knew this, but he had some trouble with the law in his past. As a matter of fact, one time he was arrested and he used his psychic powers to escape. So it's true. So the police had to put out an APB for a small medium at large. You're welcome. Yes. I have to attribute that one to Alden Clark. That was his idea. Now I'm going to read the Bible. I don't know what we're doing today. It's going to get crazy, so just hold on. Just hold on. Okay. So last week, Reverend Howard Caesar gave us an assignment. Do you remember? He asked us to read the Sermon on the Mount every day. I'm not going to grade you on whether you did it, but I did read it, not every day, but I did read it. And I kept being drawn to the first portion there, the Beatitudes. And I wanted us to, it actually ties in, it just sets up exactly what I want to talk about today. So I'd like to read that to you today. This is Matthew chapter 5, verses 3 through 10. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons and daughters of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I just sort of meditated on that all week. And what I want to talk about today is the joy in the journey. And what kept coming to me is that I've heard it said a lot that the journey is the destination. You know, that's what we talk about. So it's a journey that never ends, our spiritual evolution. And what we teach in Unity is even after we lay these bodies down, we continue to evolve and we become in lifetimes after this and just forever. We're eternal beings. We're an aspect of God's eternal nature. But what also occurred to me is not only is this a journey that never ends, but it's a journey that is always beginning. That was the piece that really intrigued me, that there is always this newness, freshness available to us. And as I read those statements attributed, those blessings, the blessed statements attributed to the Master Teacher Jesus, it struck me that there's so much beginning energy there. There's so much humility in those statements. You know, Jesus was hoped to be this military ruler who would oust the Roman Empire. You know, you would think his message, if that's who he was here to be, would have been one of power, you know, vanquishing the evil overlords, you know, that kind of energy, right? But you read those, it's blessed are the poor in spirit. Now that doesn't mean downtrodden in any way. What that means is humble. Blessed are the humble. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst. That's not a war battle. I mean, a battle cry. That's not. That's something different. Do you feel it? And what it reminded me of is there's an idea in Buddhism called beginner's mind. Are you familiar with that idea? What Buddhists teach around this is that there's expert's mind and there's beginner's mind. When we have expert's mind, we're full, we're complete. We come into a situation and there's no learning because we have this mind that has already all figured out. And then there's a concept of beginner's mind as we come into a new situation, or any situation, even it's better to come into an old situation, with this idea of openness, softness, tenderness, having our hearts be open to what's here. This is what Jesus was teaching us. That there is a way of being in life that requires this beginning and feeling, this energy of beginnings. And I don't know about you, but my expert mind has gotten me in trouble occasionally. When I get my expert mind going, you start doing all sorts of things wrong. I'm all in your business. That's what happens. When I've got my stuff figured out, then I start picking at yours. And that's one of the clues that I know that I'm not in my beginner's mind, is because I'm being critical of others. So without having you raise your hands, how many of you have been experiencing your expert's mind this week, where you find yourself being critical, having all the answers? And what Jesus, the master teacher, is asking us to do is to soften those eyes in which we gaze upon others, to be the peacemaker, to be tender-hearted. And it's actually very freeing to be a beginner. I've always been the kind of person, if I get a new job, I expect myself to know everything about it on the first day. Anybody else? You know that? And I have learned in recent years, it's okay to come in and say, I don't know. As a matter of fact, it feels good. Let's all say it together. I don't know. Doesn't that feel good? You don't have to know everything. Years ago, I was working at a church in Dallas, and I was a little dysfunctional at this time in my life, let's just say. But for some reason, it was a small church, and I got put in charge of the bookstore, the music, the choir, and the office. I was paying the bills, and I couldn't even pay my own bills at the time. It was a mess. But I was answering the phone. The church had just recently lost a minister, and we had an assistant minister who is our interim minister. And when the president of the board called, and I answered the phone, and she wanted to give a message to our interim minister. And I remember I was so wanting to impress somebody, be all efficient. And so I said, well, I'll be happy to pass that message along, Ellen. Do you mind spelling your last name for me? I've forgotten how to spell it. Pause. S-M-I-T-H. Busted. And I remember, now I look back at that, I totally laughed. But at the moment, I was mortified. I was trying to hide the fact I didn't know something. I was trying to not let anyone know that I didn't know what I was doing. And how many of us are in that spot of image management? Trying to look as put together as we know how. And I think what Jesus is teaching us is that humility, saying, I don't know, can you help me? Can you show me? It's actually a wonderful energy. It's a wonderful way it's freeing, absolutely freeing. And that is this beginner's mind. Hildegard von Bingen was a mystic, a nun in the Middle Ages, somewhere in there. I've forgotten her dates. But she actually created a word. It's a Latin word, but she put it together. It's not been used anywhere else. It's called viriditas. Viriditas. What it means is a greening force. Greening. There is if you think about a green branch of a tree as opposed to one that's cured and old, and you can feel the difference. The green branch may not be as strong, but it's got this flexibility. It's got this growing piece in it. That's what we're talking about, that there is a greenness. She said that our job is to live on the green and growing edge of our becoming. There is a place in our life, not where we're fixed and rigid and have it all figured out, but there's a place where we're learning and we're alive and we're humble to that learning. And we can ask for help. That's what we're being asked to do. There's a journey that is always beginning. Always beginning. I used to think that humility was the same thing as being humiliated. It's not. Being humble does not mean being the lowest of the low. To be humble means to be right-sized. Just to be who you are, with all you do and all you don't do and all you know and all you don't know. Just to be authentically who you are. That is humility. And as you think about your life as being a journey that never ends and is always beginning, it gives us such a feeling of anticipation, possibility, excitement. So that's where I want to begin speaking today. That is available to you right now. That sense of possibility, of brand new beginning, of moving forward. So briefly, I forgot to mention this in the first service, so I want to make sure I talk about it today. For those of you who are very goal-oriented, this talk is challenging. And so I don't want to say that we don't set goals, and I don't want to say that we don't achieve our goals. We do. But what I want you to understand is those goals are not the end. They are not endpoints, they're thresholds. They are thresholds. I remember I've had several spiritual aha moments in my life where it's like, now I've got it. I've finally arrived. I'm fully grown. It never was that. It was just this healing, this new awareness or understanding that I got that felt like, now all the mysteries of the universe are solved. All that was the peace I needed for the next part of my journey. So I don't want to in any way diminish that feeling of accomplishment or fulfillment that comes from setting a goal and reaching that goal. I just want to remind us that the goal is not the end. That's just a threshold. It's a doorway that we pass into the next part of our journey. But the journey is always happening. And it's built into the very blueprint, the fabric of the universe. It's often called evolution. There is an evolutionary impulse in the universe. The universe is 13.1 billion years old, started with the Big Bang. At least this aspect, we now believe that there's a multiverse of infinite number of universes occupying the same space and time in multiple dimensions. But anyway, there's a lot going on. It started 13.1 billion years ago. It's continuing to expand and grow in all directions. And think about biological, evolution here on this planet. I don't believe we probably have any young Earth creationists here, but maybe we do. Those are the people that counted up the generations in the Bible and decided that the Earth is only 6,000 years old. I don't want to denigrate your belief, if that's what you believe, but I have a different one, that there is actually a little bit larger time scale involved. And Michael Dowd, who has been here before, and he's going to be at Big Sky retreat in September, up in Montana this year, and Howard and Diane and myself will be up there, probably quite a few over there. But he speaks about, his book is called Thank God for Evolution. He has this wonderful way of bringing together the idea of divinity and evolution. So we can actually show that there is evolution, at least in our own species. Did you know that 7,000 years ago, 100% of human beings were intolerant to cow's milk? Only 7,000 years ago, none of us could digest cow's milk. And what happened 7,000 years ago? People started domesticating cows. And then they began to eat the cheese and drink the milk. And the bodies of the children began to adapt. Those genes, it changed the very DNA, turned on genetic markers in our body that were passed on to generations. And now 70% of humanity can tolerate cow's milk. And if you are lactose intolerant, I'm sorry. But I love cheese. And I'm so happy that happened. That is actually proof of evolution, at least in the micro scale. So there is a wonderful field of study called integral theory. How many of you are familiar with Ken Wilber and his work? A few. Good. So whenever you get that slide, Alex, we'll bring that up here. Integral theory it seeks to make a map of the entire human realm of knowing. This is a simplified map of integral theory. Yeah. You get an idea. It's a little dense, right? But there's so many aspects of this. It's a really wonderful work. You can go to integrallife.com. But the piece I want to really draw your attention to is where it says spiral dynamics. They're up there on the left under the AQAL. And it has this series of colors going down. There's a piece called Spiral Dynamics created by Don Beck and Claire Graves, which it's a way of understanding the evolution of human consciousness through time. It's a lens, a way of understanding that human consciousness is evolving. If you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is he was a wonderful psychologist, he talked about that. There are survival needs, there are relational needs, there are safety needs, and then you move up to the place, his highest was a need for self-actualization. Sort of the same idea, that there are these base needs, and about 50,000 years ago, or 250,000 years ago, when human consciousness really sort of arose to a point of self-awareness, this idea of basic survival needs came into view. That's this beige area there. We're not going to bother with that. But it began to evolve over time to higher and higher levels. When I began to understand this teaching, it helped me really figure out, or just see it differently. And one of the reasons why we're having constant conflict between different cultures is that they're speaking different languages. They're in different stages of development. It's a very, very powerful, powerful way of understanding. I want to let you know about a wonderful opportunity we have. In our community, we have this amazing woman, Cindy Wigglesworth. How many of you know Cindy? She's brilliant. She's very respected. She's kind of a rock star in the integral world, known all over the world. And she's just one of our members. There she is, lovely, lovely lady. The founder of Deep Change. She created the world's very first spiritual intelligence test. It's really, really fascinating work. Well, Cindy is very adept and learned in this idea of human evolution through spiral dynamics. She and I are going to be teaching a class starting this Tuesday, a 5-week class on Tuesdays here at the church. It's called Integral Christianity. I've had this question about what is the evolution of Christianity? And what do you know? Somebody must have known I had that question. They wrote a book. Paul Smith is a former Southern Baptist minister in Kansas City. Then he went through the charismatic movement in the 70s, and now he has this very broad understanding of Christianity, an integral Christianity. If that's interesting to you, and if you'd like to know more about this evolutionary impulse as it shows up in human consciousness and culture, I invite you to come to our class. Tuesday nights will be in the Pyramid for the next 5 weeks. And Cindy is a gem. We're just so delighted that we have her here. But this spiritual evolution, well, evolution is everywhere. It's in the spiritual realm. It's in the physical realm. It's built into the very nature of who we are. And if you don't believe it, try just getting stuck for a while and see how that feels. You know that feeling of just being stuck? Usually what sets in is depression. There's a sense that we are built to grow. And I'm probably preaching to the choir, so to speak, here in Unity, that most of us here in New Thought, we've moved away from a little bit more traditional approach to Christianity because we felt like there's more. There's a deeper understanding. We're committed to our own personal growth. So where is that growth happening? Where is our green and growing edge? Well, I'm about to use a dirty word, at least in New Thought. Are you ready for this? It's in your problems. We don't even like to use that word around here. What do we say instead? Challenges. Of course, there are challenges. That's so much cleaner and nicer. I'm okay with the word problem. Problem. Do you know what the problem does? This is an understanding that comes from spiral dynamics. The problem is the architect of the solution. The problem calls forward the very nature of the solution. Can you feel that? And that's why I'm okay with using the word, because I don't see it as an endpoint. I see it as a part of the journey. And when I'm having a problem, whatever the shape of that problem is, shows me exactly what the solution needs to look like. And for those of us who are in recovery, we know about this. Addiction is one of the most profound problems in human culture. Imagine in this country, a 747 full of passengers is crashing every 4 hours. That's how many people are dying from addiction in our culture. Every 4 hours. That's a challenge. That's a problem. And those of us who have suffered, who have experienced this problem of addiction, needed a very specific solution, right? And through the wonder of this problem called addiction, a solution came forward called recovery, which gives us a spiritual solution to a spiritual problem. And this is the nature of evolution, that there are problems everywhere, at every level, in our nation, in our government, I daren't say in our church, but in our personal lives, in all of our relationships, there are problems. It doesn't mean that those relationships aren't rich and full and wonderful and fulfilling, but there are places where something new is being called for. And that there's nothing wrong with this. This is the way it works. This is evolution at work. Celebrate those problems. Begin to call forward the thing that's going to transform that into this new experience of life and of joy. I will tell you that every obstacle becomes the doorway into a new experience. Every obstacle becomes the doorway. For me, I don't think I definitely would not be up here today. I would have been, I don't know. Something about my particular path of addiction and recovery is what opened the door to my spiritual awareness. That I would not be a minister, I'm sure of that. I'm not sure where I would be. But I'm actually grateful for that problem, even though it nearly killed me. I'm grateful that it actually became the doorway into a new experience. So I want to read a little bit more scripture for us today. This is from James, the Epistle of James, written several decades after Jesus' ministry. This probably is not written by either of the disciples named James. I'm not sure who it came from, but it's just a wonderful... It was a letter that circulated. There was no these, in the first few hundred years. Nobody carried a Bible. There was no Bible. There were these collections of letters and sayings and histories that people carried around. It wasn't until they had several councils 300 years after Jesus was gone that these were put together. And there are a lot of books that aren't in here that are also sacred and were considered sacred scripture. But I diverge from my point. James 2:1, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. There's so much wisdom in that. Count it joy when you have problems, when you have challenges, when you have trials, when things are challenging, difficult, hard. Count it joy because why? It becomes the opportunity for your evolution by simply sticking with it, perseverance, by standing your ground. And what I want to hopefully illuminate for us today is that it's not just this grunted out, horrible, hanging on by our fingernails perseverance. I'm talking about a perseverance of claiming your spiritual truth as a daughter and son of the Most High. I'm talking about persevering in the truth that I am a child of God. I am an expression of the one life meant to experience joy, creativity, power, love, well-being. Now, when you're not experiencing those things in the physical, your job is to plant yourself in the truth of who you are spiritually and stay there. I almost heard an amen. Almost. Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Sometimes my Pentecostal DNA needs that. I just say so often. That's one thing Jill Carroll and I share. We have a similar background there. That is our task. That is our job, so that we may be mature and complete, as James says. Because here's what happens. Sometimes in this teaching we call New Thought, unity, we teach a progressive, positive, what's the third one? Practical faith. I thank you. And we have this wonderful prosperity class. We teach physical healing through the power of our minds and working with the law of cause and effect. Absolutely. Absolutely, all of that. And sometimes when people come here and their lives start to look different, they start to go through diagnoses, divorce, painful periods, depression. They think they're doing it wrong. Maybe you've been there. You feel like we're doing it wrong. I'm here to tell you you're not doing it wrong. Life has texture. It's not just this slow, steady uphill climb into nirvana. That we are moving through this life and it's evolution. And these problems, these health challenges, these relationship challenges, these financial challenges are there to call us to spiritual maturity. They are there to call us to spiritual completion. Because you can say, you win the lottery and you've got, I don't know what it would be if you were set for life money, it would be really easy to say, I'm blessed and prosperous. There it is. But most of us haven't had that experience. So our work on being blessed and prosperous requires a little bit more stick-to-itiveness. Have you noticed? We have to practice these principles like Reverend Farrellin is teaching in that class right now, Prosperity Plus, which will come around again. You can take it if you haven't taken that. These are principles that we have to practice not just once, continually. And when those problems surface, to claim our good despite what's happening, despite the appearance. So I want to close with one last scripture. This one is very well known. This comes from the letter to the Romans, chapter 8, 28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him and who have been called according to his purpose. This is the key. When the challenges arrive, not if, when they arise, our job is to know. I mean, not know like, yeah, I know that. I mean, know that this is for my good. This too is God's love in form. This too is for my good. I can't see how right now, but I am determined. I have put my faith to the sticking place. And here's the way this works, people. That wonderful law of cause and effect, which only knows one word, yes. It's always responding, yes. And when we are in the midst of a challenge, whether it's a diagnosis or a troubled relationship or health or whatever it is, if we in that place say, this too is for my good, then that wonderful servant, the law, simply says, yes. This is for your good. And the very molecules of the universe can rearrange themselves to show that this is for your good. This thing which looked like the end of the road is just the doorway into the next part of your fabulous journey. You are amazing. I want you to live that amazing life that is for you to live. I'm going to invite the band to come back out here. Often after these talks, there's so much stuff going around our heads and hearts. There's a process we can actually begin to integrate some of this. And so that's why I've been talking about this. That's why we sing after the lessons now a lot of times, is so that we can begin to move into our bodies. So I invite you to stand. That process, that amazing transformational power to turn any situation to your good is in you right now. Right now. I want you to open to it as we sing this amazing chant. Go ahead. I am opening up in sweet surrender to the luminous love light of the One. Feel yourself open. Here we go. I am opening up in sweet surrender to the luminous love